We continue along this vein of really thinking critically about how we're using mobile technology. The idea for doing these walking tours came from a frustration of mine being a grad student at MIT, where I felt like there was so much focus on making the phone smart, but the stories they were telling and the content that was coming out of the Media Lab was just, the simplest form of storytelling and trite and all these kind of, errors of something that hadn't really been thought about. So my goal in working on this, and I've been working the last 6 years on what you could call mobile storytelling, is to really break through some of the barriers of what you can do on these small screens and how you can tell stories that are truly interactive and have that sense of human contact. And I think you're right, there is a lot of this still happening with video. I worked with a producer who always used to laugh when we'd be writing scripts for these, and we'd say, now hold your iPhone up and compare the video to the wall, like I think you saw in the Liberty Hotel. And we try to do a lot of this, hold your phone up, and she was like, oh God, we have to do another one of those. And it's all about that urge now and sort of early mobile storytelling to try to figure out ways to get people from this to a sort of looking around and interacting with people. And I'd still say we're sort of crawling right now. We're not at the point where we've really figured that out. But I think that there's very rich possibilities, and one of which theater has been thinking about, at least for the last century, is the fourth wall. What do you do with that fourth wall? How do you go through it? And maybe that's something we can discuss further.
Thank you. Thank you. Come up and join us. Let's begin with questions, and I'm going to throw it right out to you. We got our mic, and we've got John, so the floor is open. Robin?
Hi, my name is Robin, and I'm a graduate student here in the Masters of Urban and Regional Policy program. And in the last couple of years, I discovered the films of Charlie Chaplin, and I came to really
Just discovered them? How old are you?
I'm 29.
No, that's okay.
So,
Congratulations that you finally discovered it.
thank you. And it occurred to me that with the advent of talking films, some kind of universal language that was occurring in those Chaplin films before was lost. And almost as an art, it's inferior in a way, because you can't just look at it, understand it, no matter where you're from, no matter what language you speak, like you could with those Chaplin films. And I was wondering if you guys could all speak about that, and if perhaps there was some way that lost universal language was being replaced today in another way.
Fabulous question.
Well, that's a very interesting question, because I was just talking with Eric. My favorite movies of all time is a French film called La Grande Vadrouille. I don't know if any of you knows this movie. And I saw it when I was a kid. When I became a teenager, I saw it again. In my 20s, I saw it again. And I came here to the US looking for it, and I couldn't find it. So after several research, I went to the French library and I asked, why is it so difficult to find this movie? And then this woman just turned and looked at me and says, this movie is still playing in theater in France. Just to tell you about the power of good film. A great film, I make the collection with the movie because, of how easy it was translated and get into me and entertain me in a way that anybody from anywhere in the world can watch it and see everything that is going on from A to Z. It has everything in it: comedy, drama, and action. So basically, great films speak for itself. And Charlie Chaplin is one of the example of people who make great films. And unfortunately, we don't find great storyteller like this very often these days. I think that's what it is. It's hard to come up with great stories. And at the same time, it's important to keep looking for great stories. And it's become very competitive because the world today, there are so many productions going on At that time, you would find a few hundred films a year, but now you would find thousands. With TV shows, with everything going on at the same time, it's very competitive. I think the technology has a lot to do with it as well. If that would answer the question.
What was the name of the film again?
La Grande Vadrouille. I know the title in French, but I don't know how to say it in English. I don't know the English title. It's by Jerome, the director and producer.
What was the third word?
Yeah.
Vadrouille.
No, the third word, Le Grand
Vadrouille. Vadrouille is the third word. It's La Grande Vadrouille. I'm pretty sure if you go on IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, you will be able to find it there. It's by Louis de Funès. He's a great French actor who passed away in 1980. Actually, the movie was made the year that I was born, 1967. Yes, great.
Question?
Hi, I'm Rob. I'm a film production major at Emerson College, and
My alma mater, by the way.
as a film production major, we're very much being taught the traditional set-oriented paradigm of making a film where you have gaffers and key grips and TVs and all that, associate producers and all that stuff. But with the explosion of the digital revolution, as you look into the future, do you see a gradual kind of like almost technical dumbing down of that aspect, where you're going to start to see more movies made with, like actual big movies made with things like with the equivalent of like just an iPhone camera and just much more digitally oriented stuff where you don't necessarily need the massive crew paradigm?
Eric?
Sure, I'm happy to talk to that. Yeah, we have a lot of Emerson students that come through our office as interns, and I'm always impressed by their knowledge of the film business, which is actually more than I have. Documentary crews tend to be small. But this goes back to what everyone's been talking about, which is the power of story. And I've always been convinced that audiences really don't care what kind of lens you use or how great the lighting is, or they don't even care if the sound isn't so great as long as they can hear it. What they really want is a good story. And so I've seen films made on cell phones. And you know what? It was fine. The ones that had good stories were fine. The ones that weren't interesting, and it didn't help that they were hard to see and hard to hear. But if they'd been interesting, I would have looked past that easily. So, and then actually, the other side of that is that cell phones are getting to the point where they can, still cameras now can take HD quality video 10, 12 minutes at a time. And I met some people in Germany who just shot a feature film on a Canon still camera. I mean, the whole thing is just upside down now.
Question?
My name is Jerome, and my wife and I are longtime subscribers to the Lyric Stage.
Thank you.
Like very much. I'm interested in...
My landlord thanks you too.
I'm interested in this question you bring up of whether live theater and live tourism are put in danger by electronic media. It seems to me that these activities compete for the consumer's attention like many other activities, like religion or university education, which perhaps is endangered by distance education. And the only way to deal with these things, this competition, is by providing some value added at the theater that you can't otherwise get. Now, maybe the participative nature, the instant, reactive nature is that you think is important, and the marketplace will tell us whether consumers agree with you. But I wonder if there's discussion going on in the theater community regarding how you are going to compete. What is it that you're going to generate in terms of additional value added that it would allow you to survive and thrive?
First of all, let me clarify something. Whenever you're in this kind of situation where you're talking about a subject, it's always a good idea to have a position. Now let me tell you the truth. Theater and film and video and home entertainment can all exist all at the same time. And they should. My question is, if people start to think that this is the right form of entertainment, this is the wrong form of entertainment. So we can all coexist, and you're right, it is about the value added. And how can we make that for the consumer? At the Lyric, and that's the only place I can talk about because that's where I work and where I thrive and where I am. At the Lyric, what we try to say, whether it's blatant or sometimes subliminal, it's you're coming to a family, a home. You're being invited into this world that we are going to create for you this evening. Because we're creating it for you. Now that you happens to be 244 people a night, but that's okay. So that to me is the value added of theater at the Lyric. It's about you. It's about that experience. I, as an artistic director, am very available. Probably more available. I know some of you have gone to other theaters. I'm probably more available than any other artistic director in town. Why? Because I want to be. Because I want you to feel that you can talk to me, the host, because you're coming into my home. And that to me is the value added. It's that kind of experience that we're experiencing this tonight. This is our experience, collective experience. Whereas a film is an experience for 2.5 hours with a group of people, certainly, but it's not collective with the people on the screen because they don't know you're there. So that's really the value added of theater. The value added of mobile technology is I have it available to me all the time, or could possibly have it available to me all the time. And that's great too, They're all good. It's just, I don't want to see one get lost for the other. So that's the real position.
I have something to add on to that too. I think that one of the interesting things happening aesthetically now, if you will, is the hybridization of these different media channels. So, what I think would be really interesting and cool to me is when you stop thinking about film as that thing that just happened for an hour and 40 minutes in the theater, but that hour and 40 minutes of just being one installation of something that might also be happening on the internet at home, out in the streets, in a theater, in a comic book. And there's a buzzword for that now in Hollywood called transmedia, and it's been happening forever. I mean, this is something that, Shakespeare did, very well with sort of, plays within plays and other forms of his
because there is
folios.
Because there's a huge trend in the theater to make it more cinematic in its nature, and also in projection. And you go to a play now, and it's like, how the hell do they do that? I don't even know because the technology changes. So there is that what did you call it?
Hybridization, transmedia.
Transmedia, I think is an interesting idea.
Other question?
Oh, you don't need a microphone. Just speak up.
You're right. I don't need a microphone.
You don't? Lovely voice. Thank you.
ART.
Uh-oh.
This year,
Yeah,
new artistic director.
absolutely.
Responding to vaudeville,
Yeah,
film,
yeah.
all this stuff that you're
Yeah.
saying there.
Cheers.
I went to see it.
Uh-huh. What did you see?
Which one?
Which one?
The Donkey Show.
Oh, Donkey Show.
Okay,
Okay.
so I spent my whole life in the theater,
Good.
and I don't know what that was.
You're not the only one.
Well, I know, but I also know that they sold it out night after night,
Mhm.
month after month.
Mhm.
In a way, they had an astonishing financial success. They brought people into the theater who haven't come to theater for 20 or 30 years, or maybe never.
Mhm.
How do you respond to that?
Congratulations.
I mean, yes. in that
I
sense.
it didn't speak to me personally, and I grew up in the 70s. I went to discos, believe it or not. And I kind of went, okay, I'd rather see Midsummer Night's Dream. That's me. You know, a young kid who's never been to a play before goes in there and experiences it, and somehow wants to experience more theater, all to the good.
But I think that the idea that what you get in the black church,
Uh-huh.
okay, especially epitomized by the black church, where the antiphonal quality of the response back and forth
Mhm.
between audience and actor, is what she was trying to
Mm-hmm.
use for that.
Right.
And that's what the theater does best. And how
Reciprocal
does
response
that
experience.
survive globalization?
Yeah.
And that's really, I found it very threatening that an established American theater could put that on and call it whatever they wanted to call it,
Mm-hmm.
but had nothing to do with Midsummer Night's Dream. Absolutely nothing.
I wish I could disagree with you. I can't. Personally, I can't, because I didn't respond to
In
it.
terms
However,
of-
Sleep No More,
Right.
which was at, you know, where they took over an entire building in
Right.
Brookline, I responded to that completely.
Right.
Both as a theatrical experience and as a retelling of the, it's not a real theater, right? The Macbeth story.
Story.
Real theater, whatever. So, it all, I mean, the real telling moment with Diane Paulus and Zero Arrow Street, which was the name of that theater until they turned it into Club Oberon.
Yes.
So that's a telling story of what's going to be happening in that particular space. And if you read the article in the Globe a couple of weeks ago about Diane Paulus's husband in the Sunday Globe, you can see that that's the trend that they're trying to go to. You know, his idea that people don't go to theater, they go to places to drink. It's kind of an interesting idea.
I think we talked about theater history a little bit too. I think that there's a lesson here too, that theater being displaced from where we normally see it, and that's kind of what we were going for in that Parkman murder story, is that these hotels and gift shops and historical places could be instantaneous theatrical spaces where you are part of the performance, the concierge who hands you the game is in on the story, and we're just starting to build that up. But I think it's an important historical antecedent. The theater didn't have to happen in a theater before, and that the root of the word melodrama is actually mellow coming from the sun, and these were performers who would stand out in the street and perform in the sun, these little theatrical vignettes. So I'm really enticed by the idea that maybe what we're doing with new technology is actually very old, and that if we can tap into some of those older urges, we'll come out with something that's really humanly successful.
Question?
A question and a comment, I guess, or a comment and then a question. I'm going to start by referencing something, Patrick, that you said, which was at the beginning of your story as to how you got into filmmaking, and you referenced the fact that you were 12, sitting in a movie theater in Haiti, presumably Port-au-Prince, and in a moment your social imagination was so captivated, perhaps, that you made a conscious decision that this was a path that you would stay on. And my sense is that, so I'm going to take a very pro-globalization position, contrary to much of what's been mentioned here, because I think much of the commentary, particularly vis-a-vis the relationship between technology and kind of the mediation of our social reality, is all about the dislocation of the locus, the local place. We heard that last week during the discussion about global architecture as well. My comment is, and comment/question is, particularly with respect to film. I feel like, and this isn't just a rational thought, this isn't just kind of I really feel like I experience the world now very differently. That my sensory, my kind of sensate being has been altered by the experience of being able to draw on so much that comes to us globally. In fact, I don't think the world's getting smaller. I disagree a lot with the people who argue that globalization is shrinking the world. I think it's exactly the opposite. I think the world is expanding exponentially in a whole variety of ways, particularly in the context of the social imagination. So that's the way I'm feeling about it, and I think it's a very healthy and positive thing for human society. My question is, are there other, like, my imagining is that there are millions, hundreds of millions of Patricks around the world who are, because of global film or the experience of global media, are also starting to experience the world, not necessarily by virtue of being able to physically get on that airplane and fly to London or Paris like the global elites do, but that somehow the globalization of film allows people to experience themselves, their world, in a very different way that is perhaps, as it was for you, Patrick, presumably very positive and not negative. So that's my kind of comment / question.
Well, I'm a little bit confused about the question part of it. I can hear it as
I was waiting for the punctuation
mark at the end. I guess it's just a statement. I guess my question would be, do you think that particularly people who do not live in the advanced technological societies, the ability to experience global film, however that might be, even if it's local film, is having a transformative effect singularly and collectively on the social imagination in a way that is positive?
Well, I think everything is moving forward in this world. What I experienced when I was 12 years old, at that time, I'm pretty sure a kid that is 12 years old today would have a completely different experience. Because when I saw, actually the first movie that I saw, I went to the theater, I saw a karate movie called Vengeance. And I saw people with machetes and cutting people and blood spilling. You know, I was scared. You know, I got out of the theater, I said, oh my God, this is a terrible thing. And then I spoke with a friend and he says, no, not all movies are like that. They are different. So he took me to the theater a week later and I saw that Clint Eastwood movie with that little monkey. And I was like, wait a minute. It's completely different. So basically, and then I made that discovery and I says, oh, okay, so you can use that same medium to do something completely different. So kids today, I'm not sure if they will get scared as much as I was when I was 12 when I saw that movie, that karate movie. It does have an impact, definitely, on the world. It doesn't matter where you live. The understanding, the way we understand movies, I mean, whether it was in the 40s, in the 50s, in the 60s, it's changing over time. It's changing over time. And now we have more, it's very difficult to make a movie really to really entertain people. Stories are really, will always be the basis of it all. And those stories, that's where people can relate to them, depending on which society they are living in. You know, if you are living in a third world countries where in so many areas of the society there's no law, you can go, like if I went to Jamaica to shoot a music video and I saw people peeing on the street, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. You know, I was shocked by it, and I remember, oh yeah, that's the way it was in Haiti too. So when you come here, you don't really see it. So when you see it in a movie, and then it kind of entertain you and educate you at the same time. So I guess they are good and bad in any ways you look at it. And the world, I would agree, it's not really shrinking. I think it's definitely expanding because people are getting brighter. I mean, our mind is seeing things in a broader way, you know, done before. Because, I mean, like I said, just with the kids, you know, a kid today can watch some movies that when we were a kid, we watched them, we were amazed by it, and they would look at it today and say, wait a minute, what's this about? You know, so that would be my comment.
Another question? Yeah, over here and back there. Oh, right here.
Oh, over there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who are you?
I'm Shay Medune. I live over in Roxbury. trying to see if I can phrase this in a way that's succinct. Even though many of you have expressed that perhaps film in particular has not been as, and theater as well actually, as people are not as receptive here in the States to film and theater of other cultures, basically. So when we talk about global, we are talking about other cultures.